In May, voters in Portland, Oregon will vote on a capital gains tax that would fund free lawyers for tenants fighting their eviction cases. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's an update of a story that I did a little while back about this whole capital gains tax proposal for free lawyers so that tenants can help fight their eviction cases. Now, obviously, I am not a fan of that sort of thing. I don't think that anyone in a civil case should be getting a free lawyer from the government, okay? Basically, you're choosing sides when you do that. The government shouldn't be choosing sides when we're talking about two parties in a civil case against each other. That should be on those two different parties to pay for their own lawyers, and telling one party, well, you have to pay for your lawyer, while giving free lawyers to the other party. That creates an unfair system, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So yeah, the city of Portland, Oregon wants to do this, but they're like, well, how are we going to pay for all these lawyers? The lawyers aren't cheap. They're never cheap. They decided they want to tax landlords by, it's kind of an underhanded tax, right? It would add a capital gains tax, in the city to pay for these lawyers. Can you believe this? Basically, they think to themselves, oh, well, anytime somebody sells their property, well, guess what? Part of that capital gains that they get, will go to paying for the, what would happen? That would help contribute to disinvestment within the city. People will be like, well, why would I buy anything within the city when I can go over here and pay less taxes in the suburb right next to you? That's the truth. It doesn't make any sense, in my opinion, to pass a tax in an area like this, So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. First of all, do you think it's a good idea for the taxpayers to be providing free lawyers to tenants? Do you think this is a public good? I want you to keep in mind that more than 90% of all eviction cases are for non-payment of rent, okay? Non-payment of rent. What is there to fight? Did you pay the rent? No. Did you agree to pay the rent? Yes. Okay, well, you lose, period, okay? There's nothing to fight. So you're going to provide these people with lawyers who haven't paid the rent. What exactly is the lawyer going to do? Well, they were going to pay the rent. No. The best thing the lawyer can do is drag the case out, file useless motions, and then make it so that the tenant maybe has a couple of months extra for free on the landlord's back, okay? That's completely screwing the landlord over. That's why I am so opposed to this, right? Because the tenant they get to stay for a little bit longer, but who's paying for it? That's the real question. Who is paying so that the tenant can stay longer? If the tenant's not paying rent, it's not the tenant. The taxpayer is not paying. No, it's going to come out of the landlord's pocket. Now, the lawyers, it's the same thing. Who's paying for the lawyers? The tenant's not paying for the lawyer. Somebody has to pay for it, and that's going to be the taxpayer. And in this case, the taxpayer in particular is going to be landlords and other investors. So yeah, I'm opposed to this sort of thing. So let's get into this article. This article is coming from KGW.com, and it says, proposed Multnomah County tax would provide legal representation for tenants facing eviction. Measure 26-2238 will be on the May ballot. Portland and county leaders have spoken out against the new tax, while proponents point to rising rental costs. Yeah, let's get into it. Multnomah County voters will have a choice to make this May on a proposed new tax that will provide free legal representation for tenants facing eviction. Measure 26-238 would levy an adjustable countywide capital gains tax initially set at 0.75%. The proposal presents a crossroads in the housing crisis. Those pushing for the tax say it'll help keep people in their homes, while those against it say it's another tax pricing people out of the county. And something I didn't notice about it before was they said that the tax is actually adjustable. Okay, it's adjustable. It can go up and down. And at first, I'm sure they'll be like, oh, well, this is just to provide lawyers for tenants, right? But once they put this sort of tax in place, maybe they'll figure out some way so that they can use it for other pet programs they have. That's the problem when you put this sort of tax into place. Now, they think that, oh, we're going to be able to collect X amount of money. You know, let's say, for example, that they think that, just as an example, this isn't the actual numbers, they think that it'll collect $5 million, right? But they don't understand that that is based upon the assumption that landlords and other people who are, you know, subject to this tax don't make any changes to their behavior whatsoever. But the tax being in place will cause people to make changes in their behavior. Maybe they won't sell their properties because they know they're going to have to pay this tax. Instead, they'll refinance it and, you know, pull that equity out and use the money like that rather than trying to sell the property and then facing capital gains tax. You know, and I also wonder if the 1031 exchange is used, which allows people to sell a property without paying any capital gains tax. I wonder if they will be able to tax a person who's using a 1031 exchange when they sell their property. I don't know. I don't know how this law works. I don't know what was written into it, but you know, I think that the big thing that I'm trying to point out is that landlords, people who are subject to this tax, will change their behavior, and the tax likely will not collect as much money as they think it will because people change their behavior. The new tax would be in addition to the tax the federal government already collects based on profits made from selling investments in capital assets, anything from stocks and real estate to mutual funds and cryptocurrency. Proponents such as Eviction Representation for All hope the new tax will raise $12 million to $15 million per year. So yeah, they think it'll raise 12 to 15 million, right? It could end up being a lot less than that. And unfortunately, it says it's not just a real estate tax. It's not just going to hit landlords. It's going to hit anyone who is subject to capital gains tax. And that's people who maybe own stocks. That could be anyone. I mean, do they realize how dumb this is? Why would somebody, like, let's say your grandmother is retiring from her job where she worked for 40 years, right? And she's going to take a nice lump sum payment out of her 401k plan. Well, guess what? That lump sum payment is subject to capital gains tax. That means your grandma, when she retires, is now paying for free lawyers for tenants. You know how dumb that sounds to me? I hope this doesn't pass. They're going to be voting on this in May, and you know, I don't know just how progressive they are up in Oregon in terms of taxing themselves. Okay, I know they're super progressive there, but I don't know if they're going to say, oh, you know what, I don't mind paying higher taxes. You know, a lot of progressives are very much against higher taxes, especially when they already pay super high taxes. So let me continue with this article. Unfortunately, eviction is one of the hardest things to come back from and leads to chronic homelessness, Eviction Representation for All volunteer Colleen Carroll said. These are important steps that allow people to stay in their homes and for us to reduce unnecessary evictions through supporting those tenants through whatever the issue is. But it's almost impossible for tenants to do that on their own. Measure 26238 has been in the works for about 2 years. Eviction Representation for All hoped to have it ready in time for the November 2022 ballot, but a legal challenge from the Portland Business Alliance slowed the process. So you know what? The way I see it is this, right? If somebody wants to provide, you know, like basically make a donation to set up a legal assistance fund for tenants who are facing eviction, basically, that money would be coming from a private donor or from, you know, multiple private donors to provide that sort of legal assistance. I have no problem with that. My problem is when you are trying to force taxpayers to provide free legal assistance in a civil case between two individual parties. You know, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. I don't know who the good guy or the bad guy is in any eviction case. So why am I providing lawyers for one of the parties? I shouldn't be. But that's what they're telling us. They're telling us that taxpayers need to they need to sacrifice it. You know what? And the whole argument that these evictions are leading to homelessness, it's just not true. I've come up with the stats before, and I've shown that, you know, fewer than 5% of all the people who are sitting in the homeless shelters in New York were there after an eviction. Fewer than 5%. Okay? So it's not the people who are being evicted who are ending up in these homeless shelters. They just like to use this as an excuse to, garner sympathy for their cause. And I mean, it's a smart move on my opinion, but it's not true. And that's something we need to keep in mind. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see in May. I'll report on it after the election, just to let you know an update to what's going on with this story.